I was 2 weeks earlier in Guatemala in Tikal making those recordings of the holler monkey that you hear in the background. I got up 4 o'clock in the morning and walked for 2 hours to be on top of the pyramid in Tikal. It's the 5th of February 2023 and I'm flying from Houston to Guatemala City. Arrived at 11 o'clock and had some time to stroll around. My friend Ron from Arizona arrived in the evening. We stayed overnight and the next morning we flew with a propeller airplane to Flores in the PETEN. Since we arrived early in Flores, which is located at the Lake Peten Itza, we had a nice relaxing day. We stayed overnight in Flores and were picked up at 5 a.m. in the morning for a 2.5-hour drive to Carmelita, which is a small village that will be our starting place for our 10-day hike. They're well organized. They have done that many times before. They bought all the food for the trip for the 10 days and they're packing it up. Ron, can you look over here for a moment?
We've done the same ready film many times. At the start of all our trips, you always film this.
It's nothing new. This time it's not camels. It will be horses and mules. As long as we're watching how our supplies being packed in boxes and onto the horses, it was interesting to find out that they don't speak Mayan. And the reason why they don't speak Mayan, because they came originally from Mexico around 1920 as chicleros to collect the chicle from the chicle tree, which was then converted into the chewing gum. And Carmelito was the center where everything was collected for the chicle. And once a week, an airplane landed in Carmelito, picked up all the chicle and flew it to Flores. So all the chicleros decided to stay in Guatemala. The way the horses and mules are packed, they use a rope. And the way the rope is wrapped around the body and the packages makes a knot, and that knot is called a diamond knot. These are the first signs that we are away from really civilization. That's the kitchen here.
Hay unas en el... Ahí ven ese, ajá.
Donas, buenos días, mamá. ¿Cómo está?
Buenos días, bien, gracias a Dios.
Sí, me gustó los tortillas, muy rico.
Gracias, vaya, gracias.
Hecho de mano, ¿ah?
Sí.
Sí, muy bien. Our first day hike was from Carmelita to Tintal. We're ready to go for our 10-day hike.
Ask him if all these trails end up in the same place.
Yeah. After El Mirador, Tintal was the second largest kingdom, very sophisticated. The water that ran down the pyramid was collected as rainwater for the dry season, because the dry season was very long and they needed a lot of water. And as you can see, there is a moat around the whole property.
Puedes cocinarlo y tomarlo como un té, un antídoto contra el veneno de la serpiente.
Okay, muy bien. He took 2 leaves from the ceiba tree and cooked a tea from it that produces an anti-venom serum. This road looks pretty tough because there were a lot of horses and mules in front of us. It's like a Coca-Cola route in Kilimanjaro. A lot of people go to El Mirador. It's a 2-day hike. They stay a day and then come back. So this route is traveled a lot. I learned pretty soon that in areas like this, the moisture on the ground is very high, and it produces a lot of orchids and different flowers in the trees, also bromeliads. So I usually walk slower and use my hiking sticks for security because it's a little bit more difficult, but I see a lot of different flowering orchids. So this tree is called Mata Arbol. So it will actually surround the original tree and on the end kill it. It will go all the way up there and then grow all the way around the tree. These 2 cons are way up in the tree and they're usually difficult to see and take pictures. I'm always fascinated with nature and their design.
Este árbol que tenemos aquí es un árbol tóxico. Su nombre es chechen negro.
Yeah, in English it's called black sap poisonwood, and it has the same chemical as poison ivy, just stronger. But the interesting part is that the one tree on the right-hand side is called Bursera and is always within 6 or 8 feet, and the local call them chaka. And that tree has an antidote, and you take the bark and rub it on the infected side or infected skin, and it will neutralize the poison and make it inactive. We arrived here in Tintal, and climbing the pyramid of Tintal, which is 160 feet high. There's only El Mirador, it has a higher pyramid. It's pretty steep and it takes quite a while to get up there. The Mayans sure know how to live, because once you're up on that pyramid, you have a beautiful view, and that's what they liked. This is the largest ball court in that whole area, which was constructed around 300 BC, and they used a chiclet ball to use a hip, and the hip was covered with wooden pieces, and the chiclet ball was propelled through the gold that was hanging on the side of the wall, as you see in the next picture. And this ball court used to look like this a long time ago. No, we didn't see a jaguar, but the first night at camping, I learned to know a young photographer from Guatemala. His name is Ricardo Obando. With his inquisitive mind and multiple interests, he will be pretty famous at one particular time. And I hope I will be still around to see that. Ricardo spent 21 days in El Mirador to make this beautiful picture of the jaguar. And I was so excited, I said, if you sell it to me, I buy it. Give me a price. And it was quiet for a while. And he said, $300. So I said, deal. frame it for me. When I come back, I buy it. And I did. Next day, sharp at 7 o'clock, we leave to El Mirador, which is 15 miles distance. We usually start at 7 o'clock in the morning, our hike. This is a normal hiking route. Usually they look pretty good like this. And we're hiking now to El Mirador, which is a 15-mile hike, and we arrived late afternoon at El Mirador. El Mirador is a large site, but very little uncovered because it's expensive and nobody has money. We got up early to see the sunrise in El Mirador, which is 203 feet tall and the largest pyramid in the PETEN rainforest. The only way you can see the El Mirador complex is from a drone shot, because in front of the pyramid they're totally covered by trees and you can't take a picture.
This was construction on an epic scale. The results were awe-inspiring. A vast metropolis gleaming red and white in the jungle sun. El Mirador. Perhaps 100,000 people. Hundreds of great buildings. And at the eastern end of the city, the massive pyramid of Danta, possibly the largest pyramid ever built.
Popol Vuh.
Our guide, Antonio, is telling me about Popol Vuh, which is more or less a Mayan Bible written long before the conquistadors came, and it gives you the mythology of above the ground, how you live on the ground, and after death below the ground. It is a mythology of the three different levels that you go through life. And here in El Mirador, some of those carvings are referring back to the Popol Vuh. The amazing thing is they have constructed roads going from El Tintal all the way up to El Mirador and all the way up to Calakmul, which is in Mexico. You're talking about a distance of several hundred miles, and each section is 3 to 5 feet high. And if it's a swampy area, they go up to 15 foot high, making several layers on that road. And the width is 120 feet wide. All the water on the road is being collected and channeled into the pond. The top of the road is gypsum based and very white, so the runners can run at night with their messages from one kingdom to the next one. These are wild turkeys, and since there is no hunting, they become very tame. A beautiful bird. Ron usually has a fast hiking clip, but still a good eye for art. That's supposed to be a jaguar, whatever is left. And here, more excavation done. When I was 14, I read a book somebody wrote when he was in Sumatra and they were stranded without water. And the only way they survived, they cut some vines and drank the water. All my life, I was thinking if that is true or not. Today is a test, and I find out it is true. He's cutting the vine, he's putting a point on there, and there is quite a bit of water. In 1 meter, there should be 1 quart of water in there. So it was very interesting, a pretty exciting day for me to prove that this is actually true. Here I'm drinking the rest, what's left. Antonio tells me that the rainforest has a compass. The first turn goes to the west. The second turn is going to the east. The third turn goes to the north, and the last turn goes to the south. lunchtime. We have a soup with tortillas. That's the typical arrangements for the stove. They use wood to heat it, and on the back of the stove is usually a steel plate where the tortillas are prepared till they're ready to eat. These guys are totally confused. They're supposed to make their holler sound early in the morning by sunrise. Three, I see.
I only see two. Oh.
Yesterday we arrived at El Mirador, and today we climbed one of the smaller pyramids, which is still fairly high. And the problem they have that the trees grow right between the rocks and push the pyramid apart. We were lucky to see this bird because it's pretty rare. It's called a three-wattled bellbird. In Tintal, in El Mirador, we used the tents they provided because there was more room inside. And this is Ron, stretching out and relaxing. Siesta time. Just the tequila is missing. He forgot it. Was too bad. Since the campsite had their own toilet facility, we did not have to use our own toilet we brought along, but it became a nice seat. Certain areas on that hike, it's low elevation and a lot of moisture, where the horses leave a lot of tracks, but at the same time, the humidity creates a lot of plant life, like bromeliads and orchids. And I go usually slower to look and find them. At the same place we found some tapir footprints and jaguar footprints. We didn't see a jaguar, but we see the hair of the deer which a jaguar ate, so that's our excitement for the day. After we visit the ruins for one day in El Mirador, we're hiking from El Mirador down to NAKTUM, which is like 12 miles. So I'm standing on the pyramid called NAKTUM, and we walked from El Mirador, which is this pyramid we left this morning. We walked 12 miles to arrive here in NAKTUM. The pyramid itself, El Mirador, is 203 feet high and is the tallest pyramid in the PETEN forest.
Jan making his way down the pyramid, along with a lot of other people. And no falls. That's good.
Horse number 1 was Patricia, because they walk much faster than we. Horse number 2, horse number 3 with Jose on there. They walk faster and they're always in front of us. And that's horse number 5, and this is horse number 6, total amount of horses we have. They had to carry all the food for 10 days for us because there was no restocking any place. And we did not carry any water for the horses. They always had to find some water at the place where we camped. Here our cook Patricia again, and I'm always surprised about her imagination, how to combine different type of foods, and definitely she has a lot of experience. It's not the first time she is doing that. However, usually the trip is only two days into El Mirador, 1 day inside El Mirador, and 2 days back. Now, the last time they had a trip out to this remote location was 15 years ago. So they had to buy additional food, but she's very, very well organized. And I also like that big log. You just push it in a little bit more if you need some more fire. This is Jose, our horseman. Since there is no grass on the ground, he has to climb up the tree, cut some branches so the horses can eat the leaves. ¿Cómo se llama esas partes?
Se llaman espolones.
¿Cómo?
Espolones.
So these are the spurs that he uses to go up the tree. And they clamp around the leg, and those pointed pieces go into the tree. He usually goes up the tree between 40 and 45 feet, cut the branches, and they fall to the ground. Since it was too dark to film how Jose is climbing up the tree, so I have a demonstration how he started out climbing up the tree.
Jan, do they have to be fresh?
Yeah, they're just eating the green leaves. You better know what you're doing because it looks like it's dangerous work. Once all the tree limbs are cut, he's placing them around the tree in a large circle and put the horses inside so they can eat the leaves and be happy. And after several hours, they're being returned to the camp. Since we're at a remote place, a lot of trees fell over and it took some time to cut them and have the horses walk around. And this big tree in front of us is a chicle tree. It just gives you an idea how the path on either side looks. I think there were a long time ago big trees, they were all cut, and this is the underbrush that's coming up now.
Oh. Very cute.
He's rubbing his belly.
Wow. That's a good jump. Wow. Ooh.
That is unbelievable.
Oh yeah, scratch that belly.
The little baby is coming.
Oh yeah.
Oh, boy. That is nice. This is actually a spider monkey, and it's so nice, it's worth half of the trip already. It's scratching. We're up at 6, eat, and at 7 o'clock we're on the road from Nak Bay, going non-stop without breaks, 5 hours to La Muralla.
There's a turkey up here somewhere.
Ron is usually ahead of Antonio, our guide, and myself. He likes to walk alone.
Now it's gone quiet. Oh well. My legs. This is tough terrain. Lots of things could get you. There's little creepy vines that trip you.
After our 5-hour hike, we arrived here in Las Murallas for a sit-down lunch. She had some dried tofu that she prepared in the morning with tortillas and pineapple. They themselves had some dried meat that they brought in a pouch, ate that with the tortilla and the pineapple. No, I don't.
Este es un personaje.
Oh, ahorita lo he visto.
Ya,
Es una persona.
es una persona.
These are some glyphs he explains, and the glyph interprets what that person is saying. So next to the glyph, there is a sign for a god for the old people.
Bukukakish. El dios viejo para los...
Oh, that's the god for the old people. Oh, para mí, es el dios para mí.
Yeah.
Para los años.
Thank God we're here.
So I have to remember that god for the old people, Bukukakish. That's a mask here.
Was this an observatory?
Yes, that's an observatory here. They have every 6 foot, there's a slot here. There's another slot over here and one over there. We know from archaeologists that at this place, for the summer solstice and the winter solstice, that the sun is coming through those openings and intersecting with some elevated pieces in 3 different locations in front of the wall. And these are broken pieces of the stela that fell down. Here's our horse guy, and he is here the first time. Usually he doesn't come along and look at ruins, but since he never saw those, he came along. This metate, which is used for grinding corn, might be laying here for 2,500 years. We find out there is no water for the horses, so we have to continue and go hiking another 12 miles to NAKTUM, which is actually the final destination. So we walked like 20 miles in one day. It was pretty tough. We're also very close to the Mexican border here. Here we arrived our last destination, NAKTUM, and that's one of the archaeological sites where they start digging 15 years ago. So we are at a remote place where they display some of the pottery that is just laying here. There's hardly anybody coming, so there is no chance somebody will steal that here. It's just laying. The archaeologists, they made this lake here. It's the same material they make the collecting tank, just to have enough water, because sometimes there are like 20 or 30 people there. Since very few tourists actually come to this place, so I think most of the signatures here from the people who worked on this archaeological site. Patricia preparing food again, and tortillas always a very important part of the daily supplement.
Hola. Well.
This is our camp. That's where I'm sleeping. Jan's sleeping in there too.
My Spartan bed on the floor.
And my casa. This used to be the bunk area. There's a couple of these buildings using their bed. I had my tent set up right here on the floor. Slept in that last night, but tonight I'll sleep on the, certainly not on that mattress. But right there.
It was like 15 years ago when those buildings were constructed for the archaeologists.
There too. It's our mules. That's the shower, kind of, bucket shower. And baños back there. This was an archaeological dig site. Not sure how old it is. That was used for classification of all the stuff they found. And we have our water collection. There's some skulls that they dug up for something. This is where we're getting our water from. Right in there. And it collects off the roof. Pours in through the screen.
What's so unique about that system, that it collects water from the building and it collects water from the roof of the water tank. So you have two sources of collecting water, and it adds up to the total amount of water being collected. So we're looking at a water tank, and they use part of the idea from the Mayans when they collect water. They have a wall out of big stones, and then they have a wall with cinder blocks. And as you see here in the front, reinforced concrete piers that go all the way down into the ground.
This, I guess, is the king's tomb in this pyramid, which is huge. And there's like 20 foot of stone there the archaeologists put back in with the door behind it that's locked. So you'd have to go through 20 feet of this rock to get in, but they found jade, masks, and jewelry and stuff, but they think there's more, and there may be more than one tomb in the whole pyramid. How they decide to dig this one spot and find this thing, I don't know. It's crazy. The one up above here, they found some obsidian jewelry. This one goes back about 40 feet and stops. Don't know what they were for.
Yeah, there's definitely no hunting going on, because usually if there's any hunting going on, they wouldn't be around. You would never see a deer. So it's pretty unusual, and I'm glad that they trained the people to respect nature and give space to nature to multiply and populate that area again. Also watch behind that first one, there's a second deer in the background. That's my tent, and the nice part of getting into this tent is it has a zipper and you can enter from the side, so it makes it very convenient. I just found a non-poisonous snake, and I think it might be a rat snake what we have at home. Yeah, come on. One more time. Oh, that's the way you do it. Real fast and hard. You're the expert. I'm just the beginner. I'm just learning. Okay. Good. Since I just learned from Ron how to wash the clothes, I decided to just duplicated what he did, and it worked pretty well. A little bit water and a little bit soap, a little bit muscle power, and then you push and push because that wooden board has some grooves in there, and that makes it wash very clean.
And now we are in a rainstorm, and our guide loves it. Sorry about the lens. A little foggy. There's yarn. Woo! It's pouring rain now.
It doesn't stop raining the next few minutes. We have to pull our ponchos out and cover ourselves. That's the stone where they sacrificed people, and that was an important part of their religion, actually. This is the only stela that still stands. Oh, it's so bad you can't really see anything. They have some glyphs on the side, which are all washed out. With UV light in a dark room on the computer, you might be able to identify items. That is a chicle tree. Once you cut it, it produces this white milk that became so precious in the early 20s when all the chicleros came out here. You still see some marks from the chicleros. The chicleros are the guys who collected the chicle from the tree. And that red spot, if you cut the bark, right underneath the bark there's another layer of protective substance, and that is red. So it's a little bit difficult to see, but this is an old scar. It comes down this way, and there's another scar coming this way, and it will run all together down here. And they produce like 1 pint per week. I went online to find these pictures to demonstrate it a little better. When the chicle tree is cut in that form, it collects the sap on the bottom in a bag. You see the bag hanging there. After that, that liquid is being put in a pot and heated up and stirred for several hours, and then you lift it up so it can cool, and it becomes this kind of gooey mass that is being put in the form, and after it sits in the form for a while, the finished product is produced. So we're here located in NAKTUM. That's a Mexican border, and for somebody who knows, this is Calakmul up there. It's another big pyramid complex. So we're leaving early in the morning here and going to Las Murallas, walking our way back. So we're leaving before 7 o'clock because we have to walk all the way back to Nakbe, which is 20 miles. And it was raining last night, so a tree fell across the pathway and had to be cleared for the horses so we can continue. lunchtime. Fortunately, we have the cook and she's preparing all the food for us. We're actually here in Las Murallas again. While you're in candid camera.
The cook and the mule guy.
Yeah. And they forgot to wash their hands when they make our sandwich.
No, I watched them.
That happens to Ron with his baby skin.
And the bug bites on the feet.
And the butt bites down there. Oh, and here too.
Where?
Back here all scratched and bitten and scarfed. Versus elephant skin like I have with all the veins in here, but no scratches, fortunately.
Yeah, well, here. Ready?
Oh, here's some more bug bites. Wow.
And there's more.
Yeah, we don't want to see the rest. We arrived in Nakbe, and it was nice to see those big elephant ears, which I used to have in my garden, but they were much smaller. They're actually taller than the mule that they have walking around here. So it's nice to see those big plants. I thought it was the day before the last day, but then something changed. So we started early in the morning at 7 o'clock at Nakbe and walked to Wakna, where we have not been before, because when we walked up to El Mirador, we walked to Tintal. So once we arrived there, we decided we're gonna continue and to hike to Carmelita. So that's a place where we started out and we returned at the same place. This is the last day of the last hour of the trip, and I'm riding the horse today the second time. And it's the muddiest surface we have experienced before because it was raining a couple of days earlier at night and everything is soggy. The advantage I had that I speak Spanish and I found out that the last section is very muddy and difficult to hike. So I decided to ride the last section by mule. Ron made the last movie holding the iPhone horizontal. That made the movie come out vertical on the iMovie. So I laid my iMac onto the table and filmed what he already filmed a second time.
This last part of the trip was definitely the hardest technical part of the trails by far. And so much mud and horse shit, mule shit. From here we get a truck, 4-wheel drive for a couple hours to get us back to Florida.
We're back where we started out, and I think we saw enough trees and ruins that our next trip will go to Jordan and go with camels to the deserts for 5 days and see the temple of Petra. The person on the left here, he's in charge of all the trees and plants. We're just 2 miles outside Carmelita, and he's raising new plants. Down here, each of those little bags have new plants, banana plants, pineapple, avocado plants. Every fruit that is tropical is in those, and they plant them and transfer them outside. And they try to develop new methods where how they produce more in a shorter time. The same person who's in charge of the trees is also in charge of the beehives, and his name is Chincho. And Chincho is in charge of 30 beehives. And he has 3 locations of those beehives. Let me zoom in here. Now he said we cannot go closer to the beehive because as soon as we closer, they would attack us. They're very aggressive and they produce a lot of honey. So right now it's springtime and it's time to put some more boxes on top, and he will get up to 85 to 90 pounds of honey from each beehive. and that is 7.5 gallons of honey. These are the Maripolan bees. They produce a very special honey that is used only for medicine. And these are wild bees. They don't sting, they're very small. Let me see if I can zoom in to see them better. ¿Y usted a cómo extracta el miel?
La miel, nosotros lo sacamos con jeringas.
Oh, okay. So they're sucking out, they have a little instrument which has a ball behind it, and they suck out the honey, which is fairly liquid. It's not like a regular honey. And it doesn't taste like regular honey, but since Chincho has only one Melanopolan hive, I try to work with him to split it in several more hives, because I have some exposures to a German guy in Mexico who is south of Cancun and Puerto Morelos, where we usually go, and he works with the Mayans that have Melanopolan hives, but many, and he is selling the Melanopolan honey to people he knows, because it's not used as honey, it's used as medicine, and it has incredible properties of healing. I've studied those for several years already, and there's a guy in India has also Melanopolan honey, and they developed a new method of making the beehive. It's smaller and it can hang into the forest, and they collect a lot of honey. So I'm working with two people to increase their amount of beehives so they can produce more Melanopolan honey. We're back in Flores and have a couple of days before we fly back, so we take it easy. And all those little red three-wheelers, these are the cabs for the town, and they're busy, they're all over the place. We are renting one of those cabs and go from Flores along that road that goes to the island so we can eat something.
That's all you need, you know.
The tut-tut.
This palm tree is El Cola de Gallo. That means the rooster's tail. Wonderful plant. I'm back in a hotel, and it's interesting how animals blend into the scenery that it's difficult to see even if you get closer. The iguana is around for 75 million years already. This wonderful sunrise and the next sunrise is just shot from the inside of my hotel room in Flores. Flores at the Lake Itza has actually two islands, one large one in front of us, connected to the road, and one further out, the small one where the museum is. And the island and the museum is owned by a couple, and the lady is 84 years old, and they have all originals and they're wonderful. It's really a very interesting museum. They started collecting their pieces 50 years ago, and the government came, registered all the pieces, but they still can keep them. The Mayan culture was more sophisticated keeping track of time as the Julian calendar in Europe, because they have accumulated in 1582 a 10-day mistake. As you can see in the numbering system, they have invented already a 0. 1 dot is 1, 2 dot is 2, and then I have a bar with 5, 2 bars with 10, 3 bars with 15, 20 is this doohickey thing with a dot on there, and 2 dots is 40, and 100 with a dash. Their writing system was also very sophisticated. With a numbering and glyph system, they can make dates on calendars and keep track of time. Only 3 pieces of pre-Columbian writing survived. The one you're looking at is called the Dresden Codex, and there are 2 more, one in Madrid and one in Paris. Cortés arrived in Mexico in 1519. Their main goal was to destroy the culture. Diego de Landa, who was a Spanish Franciscan bishop of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Yucatan, changed the culture because he had all the codexes burned by hundreds and thousands of books, and all the idols were burned, and all the priests were killed just to wipe out that culture in the name of the Christian Church. And even today, we have not learned one word that's called coexistence. Because if you're born here in the United States, your guide is a Bible. If you're born in the Middle East, your guide is a Quran. And if you're Jewish, your holy book is a Talmud. And if you live in India, you become a Hindu. If you're in Tibet, your guide is a Buddhist book. If you grew up in Africa, you belong to an animistic society. And if you grew up in Japan, you become most likely a Zen Buddhist. And each of those holy books tells the people who worship it that this book is the only true gospel. Now, if this is not confusing, I'll be listening to your explanation.